You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendel and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Hello there, Broncos country, and it is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I'm your host, Carl Dumler, and of course joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Nick Kendel. Nick, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing pretty well. Almost exactly 1 month till my wedding, and that's coming up, so excited about that. Get back out in the mountains, and yeah, just ready for the weekend. I have tickets for the Iowa game this weekend, and looks like it's going to be storming, so that'll be great. Iowa, I don't know what it's been, man. They just keep playing in crap weather games. I guess that's the Midwest in the fall sometimes, but it's, everyone looks at Nate Stanley's stats, right? And it's like, oh, wow, he's trash. Well, he was playing in 40-mile-an-hour winds and it rained, 5 inches, but whatever.
Right. The situation matters.
Yeah.
If you're a raw stats guy, I'm sorry. That's a pretty bad way to scout somebody.
Box score scouts are the worst.
Yep. It's right up there with, he wins games.
Yeah, QB wins is not a stat also. That'd be a fun off-season thing to do, like scouting do's and do nots.
There we go.
So, he played quarterback at Alabama, so he's going to be an obvious bust. Not how it works, folks.
Right. Well, that's going to be. I'm excited about that topic, but we still got plenty of season before we get to the off season. So we want to make sure that you know where to find us on Twitter, because we love to talk any kind of football, not just draft, not just off season football, but of course any kind of football. And so you can find me at Carl Dumler MHH, and of course Nick at Nick Kendel MHH, and you can find the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. And make sure you subscribe to our show and leave us a rating, as we value your input. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and even that of YouTube. Also, make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, a new affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Well, Nick, of course, Broncos coming off another disappointing loss for the season, and they have, I guess, maybe the last real chance of making the playoffs. I mean, if you lose this one, you're done. I mean, it's just absolutely official, right?
Didn't the Texans start off really badly last year and ended up going to the playoffs? I don't remember how bad it was.
It was pretty bad. I think 0-3 is what they started, and then I think they won one.
Okay, and the Colts started 1-5.
I think that's right.
And made the playoffs.
So I mean, it's not I guess end all be all, but it's still you're you're playing with fire, especially in a division where you got the Chiefs, the Chargers.
Chargers getting healthier.
Right. And sounds like they're getting Gordon back for next week against the Broncos. And a tough schedule.
And you know what? You're talking about playing with fire. You know what the Broncos aren't playing with that the Texans and the Colts did?
A young quarterback?
Oh, not just a young quarterback, but a legit franchise changer talent at quarterback.
Right.
So, obviously, Missy Andrew Luck, great player. Although Brissett's playing pretty well out there, so we'll get a chance to break him down Actually, I won't get to, because I will be out for my wedding. But you'll get a chance to break down Brissett and kind of talk about that. So, that's Broncos, like you said, bringing it back here to the main topic. It's a must-win game, and luckily for the Broncos, it is against probably a team that, neutral site, it could go either way, but in Denver, feeling probably more confident in a Broncos win this week than I have all season. So,
right.
That's a good thing. However, god damn schedule makers, and obviously I'm joking at it, these things kind of play out and make themselves even over time. But another game where the Broncos are going against this week has played that Thursday game the week before, so they have an extra 3 days to get healthy and prepare.
Yep.
That's a real kick to the groin, NFL. Not really cool with that.
Yeah. Already have the, at least strength of schedule, second toughest schedule in the NFL, and then you add in things like that. Definitely not a great helper for the Broncos. But it does sound like they're pretty upset, the Broncos are, that they're 0-3. They're tired of the media asking about it. I think, Von Miller had a 12-second press conference today.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Win. You don't like it, change it. Right. Empower yourself. Right. If you hate, don't be with us when we're or don't be with us when we're winning if you're not with us when we're against you. Okay, that's fine, and that's a good tactic for Fangio as far as, rallying the troops. Nobody believes in us, blah, 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 world to suck. You know what? If I was in that locker room, I get it. But from our perspective, from media perspective, even from fan perspective, you're putting yourself up for criticism if you're struggling like they are, and if you're in, quote unquote, the world of suck that they've been. So, you're playing in the NFL. You're playing with all these eyes on you, and if you suck, people are going to let you know. These people, fans have a right to these opinions. Sometimes educated, sometimes not, but they're the reason that you're able to do this. So,
right,
it's how it's going to be. Play better, and you won't get the criticism. It's that simple. And obviously, it's not any individual player's fault, but as a team, as a institution, the Broncos are in a world of suck. Got to dig your way out, and the only way you do that is by putting together some wins. So it's on you guys.
The stat that they should remember is Broncos have the longest losing streak in the NFL right now.
7 games in a row.
Yep. So kind of hard for fans, anybody, to get excited about this team when about half a season's worth of games, they haven't won a game.
Yeah.
And so, everybody's on edge, ready to get that one win out of the way and see if they can build something. And like you said, Jags coming in, this is I would say a winnable game. You look at this team, just kind of going over some of their stats here real quick as a team. Total offense, they're 23rd. Points per game, they're 24th. Passing yards, they're 16th. Rushing yards, they're 23rd. One thing, it's kind of weird. You look at that, and then all of a sudden they jump to passer rating. They're 3rd in the NFL. Yards per pass, 9th. Completion percentage, 3rd. And and part of that is, I'll get into this a little bit more of why that is happening for them. Why you have this big jump when it comes to some of those stats. But then switching over to the defense. Now, I guess 3 games in, this is where you start wondering how much you can really trust some of these stats just because of such a small window of games that they've played. So a lot of their stats have been hurt because they played the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at their last 2 games, they've been defensively, they've been very stout the last 2 games.
Yeah. I mean, they have talent. They have talent across the board, and they're missing theoretically, they could be missing 2 of their better players on defense as well. But, I mean, no doubt about it, the Jaguars have a top 10 level defense on paper. Right.
But right now they are 20th in the NFL in total yards, 18th in passing yards given up, 17th in rushing yards given up, 19th in passer rating allowed, and one thing that did stick out, they've only given up 3 passing touchdowns, and actually all 3 were against the Chiefs. So again, kind of keep those stats in mind when you're thinking about where this defense really is compared to these kind of stats, these kind of rankings for their team, because they're definitely not that bad. But one bad game right now can really destroy everything that you've built up. And another thing that they have struggled with here a little bit, just like the Broncos, turnover differential. They have only, I think, forced 1 turnover so far this year.
I believe that is correct. Yeah, another team that the turnovers aren't really starting to roll just yet. And a big reason is because teams aren't letting the Jacksonville Jaguars defense beat them. I know Gardner Minshew's been playing well in the very small sample size, but why would you put yourself in a situation where a unit that is that talented can go out and beat you? So it's I mean, there's so much synergy in football, right? It's just that there's a reason complementary football is a cliche.
Right. And like I said, I mean, it's the same with the Broncos I think I saw a stat today that the Broncos have the fewest pass attempts against them on their defense in the NFL.
Now, I think a better statistic would probably be pass attempts per drive or per possession, right? Because the Broncos right now, their offense is moving the ball. The Broncos are number 2 in yards, offensive yards, number 1 in time of possession. So honestly, the offense is playing in a way that complementary football would work. It's just the defense isn't dominant enough where you can see that. I mean, I tweeted this out this week, but you pair this Broncos offense with the 2016 defense, we're talking about a double-digit win team.
Yep.
but the defense has just regressed so much to the mean, along with obviously some bumps and bruises along the way in the transition from the Phillips/Wood scheme to the Fangio scheme, which, I mean, in hindsight appears like a no-duh, but still, offense, you want to be putting up more points, but they are, they're not really going 3 out as much. They're moving the ball. I mean, they're controlling it, keeping the defense fresh, but the defense is not to that level where you can get away with that anymore, unfortunately,
right.
At least not at this point.
Right. And so, again, like I said, you just got to kind of keep these stats in mind when you're looking at this team and where they're at and who they are and what their identity is. It's a very interesting group, and I'm going to talk about it more when we talk about how to attack these offenses and defenses of what the Jaguars are doing, especially lately with Gardner Minshew in, because they have changed in what they're trying to do and how they're playing to his strengths. And so as more film gets out there, you're hoping that you're going to see teams adjust and try to force him to show that he can do more than what he's been doing.
Yeah. No, not a lot of tools, not a big guy, not a big arm. God damn, you have to love the attitude, right? It's like that infectious attitude kind of guy. I mean, obviously, he's like discount Baker Mayfield. Like the pocket movement, that stuff, at least in college. Baker Mayfield's having a little bit of issues trying to play hero ball right now. That's for a Cleveland podcast whenever that comes up. But Minshew's pocket movement is incredible. He processes information very quickly. He makes smart, safe decisions. And they're serving it up to him. They're really complimenting the offense to that air raid system he played in Washington State, so the transition isn't too much. However, it's limited, and I think it's definitely exploitable for the Broncos.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Watching it, I was going, I've heard a lot of people talking about Minshew and just the things that he's doing, and then I watch the games, I'm like, okay, I understand, he's doing things right. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But like you said, there's still limitations within that until he shows more, you're going to be going, teams are really going to adjust quick.
Unless you're playing like a god, cough, Patrick Mahomes, sad cough, then you probably need 3 seasons to really get an idea of what these guys are going to be, right? Like people, yeah. I mean, Baker Mayfield was crowned last year, played good, not like a god like Mahomes, but played good. A little bit of regression this season. Not shocking, offensive line not great, Kitchen's having issues. And we have people already dubbing Daniel Jones and Gardner Minshew. I mean, it's too early, people. Yeah. It's too early. We need a bigger sample size. I know it's not fun. We live in the hot take era. Everybody can have opinion. Twitter. Everybody has a platform. Hell, they gave us a platform, Carl. But it's just the sample size is going to regress. I know, what idiots. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it's it's going to be interesting. However, that said, the biggest matchup, we'll get to this here. I don't even know where we're at right now. I'm going over the stats, going on tangents right now. Obviously, I have a lot of opinions. But the biggest thing I'm looking forward here is the battle of the mustaches. McManus versus Minshew. I mean, gosh, we need like Burt Reynolds to come in here and judge this thing. There's some pretty epic mustaches going on. And shout out to Chad. I saw his mustache the other day as well. Congratulations on growing that out.
He's just a man of the times, man.
Yeah, yep. I unfortunately don't have the testosterone to grow a nice mustache, but the fiance hates him anyway. So
I was going to say, I tried when I was attempting to become a police officer.
No.
And my wife was like, nope. I promise you will not be getting anything at all for a long time if that happens.
She wasn't a fan of the, I guess it's not a cuss word, but the womb broom. As that's the most disgusting thing you could ever call a mustache. So lip sweater, we'll just go with that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, you're talking about the defense, bringing it back home here. The Jaguars defense, on paper with the rankings, without context, they look like not a great defense, but they went up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs week 1, and they laid it on them. So that's got to be the biggest thing right now. And after that, they've been playing much better football. Granted, maybe it's a little bit balanced out with how inept the Titans' offense is, blah, blah, blah. Still a good defense until proven otherwise. So it's definitely going to be another slugfest. I think a game very similar to the Bears game is what we're heading towards.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's how most of the games are going to be this year. Pretty low-scoring games that comes down to a couple plays here or there of who's going to win the game. And for Jacksonville, that's exactly what they want to do as well. So you got to definitely expect that that's going to be the case. I mean, I watched that Titans game, and in reality, I guess I would say turnovers were the big difference in that game.
I mean, hello, 70% of the game, 70% of any NFL game.
Right.
Broncos,
but I mean, you think about they got that early fumble in the game on the punt return.
Yeah.
And so it's looking like Tennessee was getting some momentum. Boom, punt dropped. All of a sudden, here comes Jacksonville, scores 7 points real quick. And it just, Tennessee's not one of those teams that can come back from behind. Jacksonville's not really a team that can come back from behind. Broncos aren't a team that can come back from behind. So that early start is always important for these teams.
I will say, I think I appreciate the explosiveness from the Jaguars wide receivers as the ability to come back more than the Broncos.
Right. I mean, that is a part of the air raid system for sure. Yeah. And like I said, we'll talk about that here in just a little bit, but it's, these teams, the Broncos and Jaguars, are built in some similar ways for sure.
Yep. Absolutely. Two teams that are probably not going to the playoffs, good defenses on paper and limited offenses. So we'll see. And Jacksonville, -2 turnover differential. So hopefully the Broncos can chip away at their -4 on the season, or just stay at -4. Gosh, let's set the bar really low at this point. But we should probably take a quick break here. We're already at 15 minutes. We'll be right back to scout the game. Carl's going to take the Broncos on offense, or the Broncos on defense, and I'm going to take the Broncos on offense. So we'll be right back, folks.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Alrighty, and we are back on the Building the Broncos podcast. Today we are recording the Scouts Eye preview, looking ahead to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the 1-2 Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off a win, though, Thursday night against Tennessee. And now we're going to kick it off to how Carl and I, looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars roster in comparison to the Broncos, how we would plan on attacking this team. So, Carl, you're up first. You have the Broncos on defense against the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Way to give yourself the easier matchup. But, I mean, hopefully, gosh, who knows? The NFL's crazy. Anything can happen. But how would you, being Vic Fangio, Ed Donatel, look to take advantage of this young quarterback and this offense that has some promising pieces, but still very much in the bottom third of the league in terms of offensive output?
So let me start with the passing game, because I think you got to kind of break this down into two parts. And looking at the passing game, looking at Minshew, like you said, they are playing to his strengths when he was in college of the air raid system, which means a lot of quick outs. That means 5 yards and shorter. You're looking at those quick passes, trying to get it out of the quarterback's hand as fast as possible. You're looking at screen passes. And then on the other side of it, then you're looking at them attacking down the sidelines deep. And so where you're going to, at least if I'm the Broncos, what I'm trying to do is I'm setting up my defense at that 5 yard spot. And I'm saying everything 5 yards or shorter, I'm coming down, attacking, making that kind of play. And I am daring Minshew to have to complete passes in that 8 to 20 yard area, because I don't think he can do it.
Yeah. And I want to expand upon that just a little bit, because I love the sound of my own voice. But you're right about that. Also, he is right now pulling a little bit of a Case Keenum, and the middle of the field is vacant when the Jaguars are passing the ball. I mean, it's not there.
Have you looked at his passing charts?
I have not.
The middle is completely blank.
Okay, there you go.
Absolutely blank. Everything outside the hashes, that's where he wants to go.
It's the Case Keenum offense.
Right, exactly. And so again, you are working to force him to have to complete passes over the middle, because he just hasn't shown that he can do it. Doesn't mean he couldn't do it. And if he beats you that way, then he beats you that way. And
the sample size is small, so you don't want to make any too bold claims one way or the other. But
right, and I do agree. But that's again, I'm going off of what I saw in college from him and what I've seen so far in the NFL.
One more sidebar. Did you catch the Washington State game this weekend?
I did not.
Did you see what happened? It was probably the most crazy game I've ever seen in my life, Carl. It was UCLA, Washington State, and UCLA was down, I think, 38 points with 6.5 minutes left, and they came back to win 66-63. The Washington State quarterback threw 9 touchdowns and they lost. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Anyway, continue. It was insane. So the Washington State made me think of that. So
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, now you got me on. UCLA has been in some of the craziest games.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
they're absolutely behind, and then halftime, boom! All of a sudden, they're good.
I heard a statistic that UCLA there's been in the history of college football only 3 teams to come back from 38-point deficits. And UCLA has done it 2 of those 3 times. And that's like a sample size of like 40,000 other games. So, and one of those games was that Josh Rosen Texas A&M game. So.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. But anyway, so back to Minshew. So again, I'm forcing him to try to beat me in that 8 to 20 yard area down the middle of the field. So again, I'm putting my linebackers, I'm even willing to put some of my cornerbacks at that 5 yard area and say, you try to throw short, let's see what happens. Because right now, he has I think it was 3rd best protection rate in the NFL. And if you look at his offensive line, I wouldn't call them a great offensive line, would you?
They're
not
some
terrible.
Solid pieces?
They're not terrible, but they're not a great offensive line either.
No, I much prefer their offensive line as far as it pertains to their run blocking.
Right.
They've spent all that money on Norwell, who was up and down last year, but he's still a good piece. And Linder, they brought in Jawan Taylor, Cameron Robinson. James O'Shaughnessy is one of the best blocking tight ends in football, but this is a classic Coughlin offensive line where are they going to be the best in pass protection? No. Can they move you from the spot and dig you out of a hole? Yes.
Right. And so again, I'm hoping that with forcing him to have to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, you can actually get some pressure on him, because when he has pressure on him, his completion percentage drops to 37.5%. Not great.
That is not good. Let me check with my producer. Oh, yep, that's really bad.
And so again, this is just trying to force him to have to do some things, have to hold on to the ball that little half second longer, especially young quarterbacks. You see them begin to panic. You see them have to struggle a little bit with that. And again, Washington State, he wasn't asked to be pressured very often. They were getting the ball out of his hand quickly and just trying to get it to the running backs, tight ends, quick wide receiver screens, all those kind of things. And again, that's exactly what Jacksonville's doing. So force him to have to hold on for a half second longer and just see if the pressure can actually get to him. Then
I do want to ask, why are you picking the 5 yard mark instead of being even more aggressive? Because if he's thrown to the flats constantly, I'm going to be even more aggressive, I think, on the edges and play not totally bump and run, but I'm going to be up in their grills because it's going to be a decent amount of outs and kind of some bubble screen kind of stuff too. So why even give them the 5 yards? Why not play press?
I guess for me, it's a little bit when you're playing press, if they start actually running down the field, you turn your back real quick.
Okay.
And so that 5 yards, you can still be watching the quarterback. And he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, so I think at 5 yards, you can still come down, make some plays, possibly get that big turnover.
Okay. I
think of a Bosby, especially, a guy that can really click and close, coming down, making a play.
All right. I was just curious because obviously the off-coverage, conservative, a little bit more vanilla coverage the Broncos have been playing has not been great. Granted,
right.
Statistically, they did well against Aaron Rodgers last week. They kind of took their foot off the pedal, but that's just was curious. Continue.
Yeah, no. So 3 to 5 yards. We'll go there.
Okay.
And so I'm giving him a little bit of space, but not much, and trying to keep where I want my eyes on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Because he really does. If his first read isn't open, he's going to his check down. I mean, it's usually just a 2-read system for him right now from what I watched. And so again, he's getting it out of his hands real quick there. So I think you can watch his eyes, and I think the Broncos can make a few plays there. But I mean, they have to be disciplined because like you said, they do run a lot of screens, a lot of the quick outs. You got to be ready for it. You get caught sleeping, they can have a big play. It's why he has actually pretty good yards per attempt.
But not air yards.
Right, not air yards. And again, he does hit the long ball. So you got to be careful with that. He's looking for those one-on-one opportunities deep. and he does have some speed at wide receiver.
I was going to say.
And those guys actually, they have pretty good hands. They haven't dropped many of those. And Minshew's been very, very accurate on those throws. So I do expect he'll probably hit 1 or 2 in the game. He usually does. Every game so far, he's hit about 1 or 2 of those deep passes. What
would you say is the most impressive thing about Minshew?
I would say, you were talking about it a little bit earlier, his ability to move in the pocket.
Yep. Yeah.
There were so many times where he really did a great job stepping up, trusting that his pocket would be there, knowing when to take off running if he needed to, but not doing it exclusively. He doesn't throw great on the run. I will say that. He tends to overthrow because he's trying to compensate for not having a strong arm. So you can catch him a little bit if you really get him off his spot. But just, again, like you said, that calmness in the pocket, you don't usually see that from a young guy. Usually they want to get to the outside. He steps up.
Yeah. He does such a good job staying balanced within the pocket. And it's like the subtle movements where, he'll slide just a little bit to give himself a window, and all the whole time keeping his platform, keeping his base balanced, and putting himself in a position where he can get off an accurate throw. Granted, under pressure, been worse, but just the pocket movement, I think it's his best trait. So something to watch there, folks, and something that you can put in your back pocket as far as future quarterback evaluation, and something that Locke hasn't been the best with in his career at Missouri. So important to kind of throw that out there just for future reference.
Right. So now switching to the other side of the ball here. Against the run, of course, they have Leonard Fournette, and one of the biggest bruising running backs in the NFL. And really, there's not a ton of creativity to their run game. We're going to run between the guards, and we're going to run it down your throat. 32 of their 44 carries so far by running backs have gone between the guards. So again, there's not much. Yeah, there's not much creativity there. So this is where I'm telling my running backs, they can come downhill. They don't have to sit there and wait and see if this guy's going to bounce the outside or if they're going to run a lot of counter or anything like that, because they don't. They're just not creative when it comes to the run game, and it doesn't really fit Leonard Fournette to be creative anyway. That's just not really his game. And so right there it is. You got to plug up the middle. Last week you had, or our last episode, you had the interior defensive line as our stock down. This is not a game you can have a stock down. Otherwise, they're just going to keep handing it off to him and just say, here you go, have fun.
Luckily, Davis is back.
Right. And I'm hoping he was a little rusty last week. I will say that. And I'm not sure if Jules going to play this week.
That means we get Corey Nelson.
Oh, yay. That worked out so well last time.
God.
So, might be a little worried if Corey Nelson is getting the start in this one. But, no, the interior guys got to have their work. It does sound like Wolf stands a chance of playing.
Insane.
So that'd be crazy if he could play. But they were very optimistic from the press conferences that I listened to. So, if he's back, honestly, this isn't a game where I'm probably activating Walker.
Oh, you get Jones instead?
I would have Jones, and who's the other one?
Purcell.
Mike Purcell. Yeah, Mike Purcell is another one that I would have out there, just because I want a little bit more size.
Yeah, honestly, I'd probably play it a little bit more conservative with Wolf if I had the choice. Obviously, it's a must-win, but at the same time, every game's a must-win from here on out, and it's a divisional game next week. So if he's only 50%, I'm probably going with the depth. But that's just me trying to protect the player. Maybe that's a little bit more of a college instinct in me in that regard. But
and I understand. I would be activating Purcell and just saying I need more size to stand up and really limit what Fournette can do against him. Because, like you said, this is a limited offense. They can make a few plays. They do have the explosive play ability. But beyond that, they are limited. They're more depending on you beating yourself than them actually beating you.
Yep. Kind of like the Broncos. But, two teams looking in the mirror. It's that Spider-Man pointing at themselves meme. So moving on now for me, the defense, Jaguars defense, obviously on paper, it's a pretty good defense, but not having Jalen Ramsey, which apparently his wife is in labor, maybe they had the kid by now, unsure, had back issues, trade rumors, there's a lot going on. I think it's pretty safe to say Jalen Ramsey's not going to play. Granted, it might change 10 times between now and then. We'll see. It's almost like the Antonio Brown stuff. Will he, won't he? Who knows? But on paper, this defense, especially the front seven, is talented. Calais Campbell is probably one of the more underrated, unique defensive linemen in the past few seasons. I mean, I went back and watched some of his Miami tape, and this dude is just unbelievable. 6'8", 6'9", 300 pounds. Dwayne Smoot has started to come on there as kind of a more speed edge rusher. I really do love their interior trio. They got a bit of mass as well as some burst. Aubrey Jones is a really good defensive tackle. Marcel Darius, who went 3rd overall in that 2011 draft, right after Von Miller, and before guys like J.J. Watt, Patrick Peterson. He's not great, but he's a pretty darn good defensive tackle. And Taven Bryan, thank God for my brand, because I enjoyed him at Florida, his trades at least. He started to really come on for them as well. So I really like that beef that they have up front. But they also have some speed elements on that defensive front as well that makes them a unique team. Obviously, you have guys like Yannick Ngakoue, but also you have the 6th overall pick, Josh Allen, and he's a load of fun. He's comes off the edge, but he's honestly just as effective in space and in coverage. So a really good piece there. And after that, though, the front is great. The front is deep. They got guys who can rotate. I'm all about that Jaguars defensive front. The back seven, not as good. They play a 4-3 in base. And obviously you have Miles Jack, their middle linebacker. He is questionable for this game, but let's assume he's going to play. Very talented. They paid him before this season. But their other linebackers are relatively new and unproven. You got Leon Jacobs, a guy who I loved a lot in the draft coming out. I was upset they took Keyshawn Bierria over him. Granted, looks like that might have been the right call since Leon Jacobs is starting now, but he's a really good athlete, kind of plays that overhang guy, maybe a little bit of a Leo role. If you guys know what that is for that, the Seattle defense made it pretty famous, and obviously the Jaguars still have some of a little bit of the carryover from that the Seattle defense. So they have that going on there. I really like him a lot. Their leading tackler is Quincy Williams, who is their weak side linebacker. He's a pretty good chase linebacker, but not the best. So they have a lot of speed at linebacker there, but not the best in terms of the mass. And then their secondary, I like AJ Bouye a lot. Really good player. But after that, if Jalen Ramsey isn't playing, you have a massive drop-off. DJ Hayden, former first-round pick for the Raiders, but he's never lived up to that hype. Ronnie Harrison is a kind of a linebacker safety hybrid, really good coming down, physical guy, but if you have him where he's lined up in man or his back is to the line of scrimmage, he struggles. And Jared Wilson, solid player. I think he's been their leading snap getter on defense so far this season, but not a difference maker at free safety. So how am I going to attack this team after going over that roster? Obviously a lot of talent there. I think that the big guys that I'm going after, even though they have a lot of speed, it's linebacker. This Broncos team, and even though it goes against statistics, they're running a lot on first down. This is a team that understands that their tackles have them a bit hamstrung in the pass game. Their quarterback has them a bit hamstrung in the pass game as far as the mobility and making guys miss. So they're running a lot, and I think that's where you really have to win that battle. And that means getting past that defensive front, really talented defensive front, and getting to the second level. Yes, they're going to chase you down. Yes, they're going to have some speed there that's going to maybe limit some of the big runs. But if you can get to that second level consistently and lower your shoulder, then you're going to get some yards and you're going to be ahead of the sticks. So I think that is probably the biggest thing. And if you can do that consistently, then you have those linebackers starting to be a bit more aggressive coming downhill. And that's when I'm hoping you can really start to hit on this secondary, which, again, if Jalen Ramsey does not play, does not have the greatest depth. They do not have the greatest coverage guys. AJ Bouye and Jalen Ramsey, one of the best 1-2 punches in the game on paper. But without Ramsey, it just kind of falls off there. So that's what I'm probably looking to do. I am concerned also about the pass rush. I think the Broncos' interior offensive line is playing pretty darn well. They played pretty good last week. Kenny Clark still got some of his, but it was really those edge rushers that killed the Broncos. So protecting the tackles, protecting Flacco, I think that means running the ball and hopefully taking the air out of it. So more of the same, but hopefully some more conversions in the red zone and some big plays down the field, either from the run game, which has been surprisingly stagnant as far as big plays go, and also down the field in the pass game. So a lot's going to come down to if a guy like Ramsey plays or not, but I think that complemented with the Broncos defense and the Jaguars offense, this is a game that should be pretty evenly matched.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And it definitely will be interesting. Like I said, if Ramsey doesn't play, how does that secondary look? Because, I mean, that's maybe your top player on defense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
For sure.
I don't think it's even a maybe. I think, Calais Campbell's probably up there, but for my money, probably Jalen Ramsey. And so DJ Hayden, he's actually had a little bit of a bounce back with him, but he's still not Jalen Ramsey. And
it's one of those things where you're going to have a little bit of a bounce back when you are playing against teams' third and fourth wide receivers.
That's true. That is very true. So that depth will definitely be tested. And so that brings us here then to our matchups to watch this week. And one of mine is the fact that you're going to have, probably with the Jaguars, what they're going to do is they're going to have A.J. Bouye matched up either with Sanders or Sutton one-on-one and pretty much say, Bouye, you have to go win your matchup. And he's a good cornerback, don't get me wrong. But he's another one that's moving up here. You're going to facing a true number one, possibly in Sanders, and or even Sutton. I mean, like I said, he's been proven that he's starting to look more and more like a number one wide receiver. And so if either of those guys can win that matchup one-on-one, it makes that offense much, much harder to defend if they have to try to help Bouye, or if they just pretty much say, well, we're just going to have to live with it that their top receiver is actually going to go out there and win.
I like that one a lot. And A.J. Bouye, I mean, he's a good player. Is he a true cornerback one? I don't know. He's good. He's long. I think probably you'll see him matched up against Sutton more than Sanders, though, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really known for his suddenness or quickness. He's more known as kind of that long cornerback that can defend those bigger guys and knock down passes. And so, I definitely see him against Sutton, but I think Sutton can win that matchup. If I had to pick which one, just with how Sutton especially has looked in the first 3 games, I would pick Sutton to get a few plays here. Yeah.
Sutton's playing well, and I would love it to see them continue to target him deep. Flacco almost had that touchdown for him where I think it was Garrett Bowles maybe missed an edge rusher, or Phillip Lindsay just completely whiffed against Smith, one of the Smiths, I'm not sure. I think it was Za'Darius, which granted, Phillip Lindsay's given almost 100 pounds there, but still, that's something that I'd love to see as well. And I think Sanders coming off a poor game last week, granted, tip of the cap to Jair Alexander, but I think that Sanders is the guy that I'm looking to pepper targets to.
Yeah,
so
definitely. So then another one of my matchups, you already talked about him, Calais Campbell, possibly first or second best player on defense. I mean, just kind of depends how you want to look at it.
I'll take one of those.
3 sacks last week. And that Titans defense or offensive line is actually pretty darn good. So for him to get in there and make those kind of plays, given Mariota doesn't have the best pocket presence, and if any, he's really struggled. But he's going to be going against Wilkinson, who had a terrible game against the Packers, gave up 3 sacks, and is going up against a tougher matchup this week in Campbell. Now, Campbell does move inside some, so you're going to see him against Leary sometimes, other times against Wilkinson, sometimes double teamed, all those kind of things. And so just be interesting to see how they handle Campbell this week. And really, I mean, just that defensive line, because just looking at them, watching them, it is impressive how balanced they are on the defensive line.
It's that Seattle, I mean, they obviously don't have Gus Bradley anymore, but he kind of set it in motion where they have very unique complementary pieces across that defensive front, much like that Seattle team did when they won the Super Bowl.
Right.
A lot of different kind of just body types, skill sets, and they can move those guys around and get the best matchups and get them in there situationally. So I was already harping on them too much. I don't want to spend too much time, but this defensive front, considering the depth, the versatility they have, I mean, they're 3 deep at tackle and edge. It's a fun unit.
It is. It was a lot of fun to watch them work, other than me thinking, oh, crap, now they have the Broncos. Mm-hmm. So, no, but it will. It'd be interesting if Wilkinson can halfway win that that matchup, it definitely goes a long way in that offense actually being able to do something. Because I do think they have some opportunities, but it is going to take the offensive line winning more times than losing this week. They lost so much last week. So many times the Broncos would get on a good drive and then give up a sack. And that just can't continue. It's just killing drives. And then my final matchup that I'm excited about just to watch is Leonard Fournette versus Davis and Jewell, if Jewell plays. And
are you talking pass or run?
Run. Because Fournette's not great in the pass game.
He is second on the team in receptions, though. So he's going to get targets.
Yes, he is. But if you actually watch him in the game, he drops at least 2-3 passes a game.
It's not natural.
Yeah, as much as they feature him in the pass game, it's mostly just because, like I said earlier, Minshew looks at his first target and then goes to the check down. And Fournette's usually that check down. So that's why he's getting so many targets. That's why he's got so many receptions, is just the volume that's coming his direction, because Minshew doesn't really work great to get to that second, third read down the field. And so, again, this is going to be one of those, and I guess this would be a matchup of both run and pass, but I was thinking more the run, just because Davis and Jewell coming downhill have to get in there, make some plays, get some good stops, because I just think of that Raiders game. I mean, what did they do? They just ran it straight up the middle, and the defensive line was getting pushed back 2-3 yards. And this is another one of those games where that could be a possibility. They got a huge interior and, well, just really their entire offensive line. And so thankfully Davis is back, and that should help, but it's still a matter of they got to get him in some third and long situations. I mean, just kind of like they did against the Packers, like they did and against Chicago. And that was how they were able to make some plays on defense. But, so, I mean, they're going to really lean on Fournette in this one, I think.
Ball control. It's going to be both teams seeing who can make the game shorter.
Right.
So if it's an ugly product, at least it'll be short. For me, you talked about Wilkinson struggling. Garrett Bowles, no holds last week, but still struggling. And this week he's got a couple of really good speed rushing options going against him. Yannick Ngakoue, Josh Allen maybe as well. They do move him around, although typically you'll see him I've seen him more over the right tackle when they move Calais Campbell inside in those situations. But Yannick Ngakoue, probably one of the more underrated defensive edge rushers in the game. He is a little bit one-dimensional, where his run stuffing ability is not great. I mean, he's kind of what the Broncos probably had hoped Shane Ray would be, as far as that small guy, really good burst, some good bend, tenacity, but just because of the strength that he lacks, not the best at the point of attack. So that's something that I think Garrett Bowles can win. He just can't overset, and don't hold, buddy. Don't hold. So that's a big matchup. Hopefully Garrett Bowles, I mean, even if he gives up again, this is the low bar podcast. We maybe need to change the title, but I'm okay if he gives up a freaking sack or, that messes up a couple of times. He's almost relearning the technique right now, because he has to learn how not to hold. So if he can walk out of here with no hold against those guys, I'll take it. Another one I really want to highlight here is DJ Chark. Man, he is been killing it. He was one of the offensive standouts 2 years ago at the Senior Bowl. Really was not highlighted at LSU, because until this season, LSU had been playing super duper conservative ball control, let the defense go win. Now they're airing it out, and Jacob Eason's a Heisman candidate, so who the heck knows what's going on there? But
not
DJ Chark,
Eason.
Not Eason, Joe Burrow. Yeah. Too many J's this year. Every single top quarterback prospect besides Tua Tagovailoa, their first name starts with J. I'm going to name my kid just Jay for the heck of it. Like, be it a man or a woman, Jay Kendall. Going to be quarterback for the Broncos in 2045. So look out for him, folks. Anyway, DJ Chark, man, he is a really good vertical player and good dynamic size. I mean, 15 receptions this year, 18.5 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. Very long, very good deep, but also pretty good after the catch. Not always the most nimble as far as the agility goes, but so explosive linear, and really just an emerging stud in the league. I also want to highlight, the way this Jaguars weapons are built as far as the pass game. they have speed. They have speed at wide receiver. Not the most nuanced guys, not the best over the middle, short area quickness, but I mean, DJ Chark, that dude can fly. Chris Conley played for the Chiefs for a while, pretty much used to create space. That dude can fly. And D.D. Westbrook, although he only has 7.2 yards per reception, he's more of their slot guy still. He can fly. And all three of those guys have receptions over 28 yards this year and a touchdown. So, throwing it down the field, maybe not the best for Minshew's skill set, but when you have weapons like that, sometimes you just got to toss it up for them. So, however the Broncos are going to match up, I mean, it sounds like it'll be Bosby, who will be the guy there. Bosby, Chris Harris Jr. We'll see if they line up either against DJ Chark, but Chark has been killing it. And it also sounds like Kareem Jackson is not going to go. So we'll get a chance to see Duke Dawson, which is fun, but Kareem Jackson's been one of the better players on the defense, so that's not as fun. And finally, my last matchup to watch, a guy who is pretty underrated in the league right now, and he's never going to do much in the pass game, but it's James O'Shaughnessy, the tight end for Jacksonville, and he has just been dominating at the point of attack. He's essentially a sixth offensive lineman, only has 10 receptions this season for 78 yards and a touchdown as well, but watch for him in the run game. Honestly, that's his bread and butter. That's what they use him as. That's why they brought him in. And him versus the edges, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and getting to that second level, combo blocks, working up against the likes of maybe Jewell, but also Davis. Shaughnessy, if he can win consistently in the point of attack, the Broncos are going to have to kind of switch up how they're attacking the run game. So watch for him. I'm a big fan of his game. A little bit jealous. I mean, if you could pair him with Noah Fant, we'd be cooking as far as the Broncos tight ends, just how complimentary that would be. But alas, although Jeff Hireman did have a good game last week, so can't complain too much. So any thoughts there?
Well, I just want to point out one thing there with DJ Chark. He has 15 receptions. 5 of those have been 20 yards or longer. So a third of his catches. And he really is that guy, like you said, that if they are going deep, this is the guy they want to get the ball to. Now, the others have...
Conley has a lot, too.
Right, I know, and the others do, but it seems like DJ Chark is the guy that they really want to get going down the sideline and see if he can go make a play. He's got really good chemistry right now with Minshew. And like I said, these guys got a lot of speed. Chris Conley, I think he was a 4.35 40 when he was coming out of college. I can't remember what D.D. Westbrook was, but yeah, they definitely have a lot of speed. They're kind of built that same way to a lesser degree of the Chiefs, of like trying to get those speed weapons that they can really make some big plays and be explosive. They don't have quite the pieces, obviously, that the Chiefs do, and they don't have the quarterback the Chiefs do, and they don't have the offensive line the Chiefs do. I mean, really, like I said, they're just a very big-time lower version of what the Chiefs have really created. They're trying to create it there. And so, yeah, definitely got to watch out for that speed. Definitely a game where you could think that there's probably going to be a couple big plays the defense is going to give up in this one.
Yep, I agree with you. All right, well, we're already approaching 50 minutes here on my end, so we should probably get moving here because we still got one more section. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, and we are back on the Building the Broncos podcast. I am Nick along with Carl. And Carl, I don't know if you saw this, but I added an over-under section, kind of fun for us going forward. Maybe we can kind of, get to working on that, right? That can be kind of a fun thing. So this is still a little bit rudimentary. If you guys have any thoughts on some over-unders that we could add, maybe a kind of prop bet kind of thing, let us know because these are always fun. But these are some that I have set right now. Carl, if you have any ones that come up to you when I'm throwing these at you, you just let me know. I'll fire back.
Okay.
So the Broncos,
I just want to make sure before we start this that those listeners know if you lose money, it's not our fault. If you make money, you have to send half of it to us.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
I am a poor wedding guy, so it's great. I'm about it. So all right, over under on the Broncos turnover margin set at 0.
I'm going to take the over in this one. I think they're going to get a couple.
Okay. Broncos sacks, 1.5.
Oh, man. I guess if they're getting turnovers, I'm going to say that it's because they're getting pressure but not sacks. So I'm going to say under.
Okay. Broncos offensive touchdowns, 2.5.
I'll go under.
Okay. Flacco touchdowns, 1.5.
Under.
Broncos rushing yards, 125.
Over.
Jacksonville rushing yards, 120.
Under.
Jacksonville passing yards, 285.
Under.
Okay. Interesting. All right, and then some stuff just pulled off the internet here. This is being recorded. This is Thursday, September 22nd at
26th.
26th. Wow. Well, I can't read numbers. I was getting ahead of myself. It's 2:33 on the 26th. The money line right now is favoring it's Jacksonville plus 132, Denver negative 152. The spread is favoring Denver right now, 3.5 points. So I guess we'll figure that out when we get to the predictions, but that's where it's at. So Denver, if it was a neutral field, that would have Denver a favorite by half a point. Just general logic. And the over-under is 39. Right now, though, the money is coming in on Jacksonville 55-45. So people think Jacksonville will cover that spread overall. So now some superlatives. Carl, the Broncos win if.
I'm going to go with, the answer every week should be if they don't turn the ball over.
Oh, okay.
But
it's better
really,
than Eric's last week, where if they scored more points.
But it really is. These first couple games or a few games, it's really been just them killing themselves. They've just. It's not that I felt like the other team beat the Broncos. I do feel like the Packers are a better team than the Broncos, and I do feel like they probably won that game. But it wasn't as bad as the score showed, because the turnovers really made the big difference in that one. And so, again, for me with this one, it's just a matter of if they can not make the stupid mistake in this game that gives up the big touchdown, because it is supposed to be a close one. And I really do think that's going to hold true, and it's just going to be a matter of which team doesn't make that mistake. Okay.
I'll go with the Broncos win if they give up less than 3 sacks. So 1 or 2 or 0. I think they got a chance, but that's going to be a tall order if this team, that might even be putting it a little bit too hard. That might win if they give up more, but if they give up less than 3 sacks, I think it is a win. So good luck, tackles. Now the Broncos lose this game if
Gardner Minshew is comfortable in the pocket. He's shown that he can complete a lot of passes in this league. I think he's, 3rd or 4th in completion percentage this year. And so, if you let him go in there, just sit comfortably, pick you apart short, and then hit his passes deep, it's going to be hard to see that this team's going to get stopped by the Broncos.
Alrighty. I think the Broncos lose if they let the Jaguars get ahead by 6+ points in the first quarter. Too many games Broncos are getting behind. They've had the lead for 30 seconds to 2 minutes in this season? Not good. So I think if they let the Jags get ahead by 6 in the first quarter, which means either 2 field goals or a touchdown, yikes, not great. So that's mine. MVP of the game if the Broncos win is?
I'll go Phillip Lindsay in this one. I think he's ready to have a breakout game, and if they can get that run game really taken off, get a couple big explosive plays from him, I really think the Broncos stand a great chance.
Well, I'm really happy that you went with Phillip Lindsay, because I'm going to go with Royce Freeman.
Ooh.
A little bit opposite there. I think that the key to this game, you're looking at you got to get past that first layer of the defense, but that second layer, as fast as they are, they're not the biggest. So I'm hoping that the sledgehammer is the guy that comes in there. And if he can break a tackle at that second level, get to that second level, you're looking for some. With the way Royce has been running, he's been a load running behind his pad. So I think that Freeman is actually going to be the guy that really is stoked in this game and comes out to the MVP if there's a Broncos win.
Right.
So the GOAT if they lose, and that's not greatest of all time. That's the old school definition of you're either the hero or the GOAT. So if the Broncos lose, the guy who gets the finger pointed at him.
Well, if Jewel can't play, Corey Nelson.
Yep. I'm going to go with Wilkinson just because I think he has such a difficult matchup in this game. He looks like a guard playing tackle right now. And I love the technique. He's balanced. I just don't see the movement skills that you want, that you can hang there. Add to that he's going to have to go against not only Calais Campbell, but also Josh Allen. That's a recipe for some bad plays. So it's too bad. I like Wilkinson. I think he's got a future in this league, but probably more of a guard. So we'll see. Key stats of the game, Carl.
I'm going to go third down percentage on both offense and defense.
Okay, I'm going to go red zone percentage on offense. Got to score touchdowns, folks. Field goals do not win games in today's NFL. And player who must step up if the Broncos are going to win.
I mean, I was going to go Wilkinson here, I guess, but
You can.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the easy one. Just like I said, he had such a bad week last week, and like you said, tough matchup. He has to step up. I mean, you already said it. Broncos lose if they give up 3 or more sacks.
Yep.
Well, Calais Campbell got 3 sacks by himself, so if Wilkinson gives up 3 sacks, that's game.
I will go with. I'm going to go with Emmanuel Sanders. Coming off a bad game against Jerry Alexander. Doesn't sound like Jalen Ramsey's going to be going. Sanders killed it against the Bears week 2. Not great week 1, but I think this is a game where he can really step up, take advantage, and be peppered with targets. So I'm going to go with Sanders. If he steps up this week, I'm feeling much better. And the dark horse difference maker.
I'm going to go with Shelby Harris in this one. He hasn't done much so far this year, but I think this is one of those games that I see him just really explode, make that big difference-making play, maybe a strip sack, maybe that knock a pass up for an interception, something where he really steps up and makes a big play for this team.
I like it. I think that he did have a better game against the Packers. There was that play where Aaron Jones kicked it outside, and that Packers center, I don't understand how the hell they didn't call holding on him.
Oh my gosh, he had the whole right arm just grabbed and yanking on it.
Yeah, I mean that's going to happen sometimes, but that was a hold, folks. Like that's a hold. So that was unfortunate. So that's a good one. I am going to go with last week I went with Jeff Hireman, and he ended up being the highest graded Bronco on offense for Pro Football Focus. So got to keep the streak alive here for a dark horse difference maker. I'm going to go with Ronald Leary. He's been a guy who's not been the best in the zone scheme. He doesn't have the mobility that he used to have, although that's never been his game. But going up against Aubrey Jones and Marcel Darius and Calais Campbell in sub packages, I think Leary has been working his way off that Achilles. He's not great anymore, but he's good. And that interior trio for the Broncos offensive line is something they can lean on. It's playing pretty well, especially in the run game. They were starting to get it going last week. So I'm going to go with Ronald Leary. I think he's a guy who the Broncos need to have a big game, and I just feel it. I don't know. I'm definitely tough on Leary. It was tough on the signing given his injury history, paying him a lot for a guard. Really wanted them to get Whitworth that season, or keep Okung. Hindsight's 2020. But Leary playing better. That interior trio is playing better, and he's the guy I think that needs to step up the most if the Broncos are going to enact my game plan, and if Royce Freeman is going to end up being the MVP. So I'm just steering into it here. Ronald Leary. And finally, Carl, score predictions.
So I do have the Broncos winning this one.
Okay.
And I think the Broncos win. I'll go with, I think they're going to have a little bit of an offensive explosion here. They're going to get the run game going, and they're going to put up 20 points. I'm going to go 20.
Oh, first time in forever.
Right. And I'm going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars going with 13. So 20-13 Broncos win.
Well, that's a good one. I think the Broncos offense is not going to be that good, but I agree with you on the Jags score. I'm going to go 16-13. Jags cover the spread. Broncos ended up getting their first win of the season and breaking the losing streak. So you heard it here, folks. Hopefully we will get that right. I think we're not doing very well this season, Carl. I think you're 0-2.
I'm well, on this podcast, I guess, on our prediction thing that we send out as a group from Mile High Huddle, I'm 1-2. But on here, yes, I'm 0-2. Yep. Yes, I did pick the Packers game right.
So me too. So Wolf, however, I think I had the spread right in the Raiders game. No, that's impossible. Never mind. Either way, hopefully we get this one right. Every time we predicted them to win, they've lost. So what can you do? That's going to wrap up today's episode of Building the Broncos, though, powered by Overtime Media. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Kendel MHH. Make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast wherever you listen to your shows. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. For Carl, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Building the Broncos podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you soon. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.